The ballroom glittered with chandeliers as the company's annual gala came, alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and polished power suits. At the edge of the room, staff in crisp uniforms stood invisible, clearing plates, pouring drinks, sweeping crumbs that rained from golden tables. It was supposed to be a night of prestige, wealth, and control. Yet hidden in the shadows of this grand spectacle stood a janitor, unnoticed except as the butt of a careless joke. When someone pointed at the piano and sneered, "Why don't you give us a show?" no one imagined what would happen next. If you believe quiet strength can silence even the loudest room, hit like and subscribe for more stories of hidden heroes. Carlos was a single father. Every morning before sunrise, he packed his daughter's small lunch, braided her hair with hands still rough from hours of scrubbing floors, and walked her to school with a smile that hid how exhausted he was. By night, he worked as a janitor for one of the city's towering corporations. He was the man in the background mopping the marble after midnight, straightening chairs before executives arrived, and cleaning ash from glass trays none of them noticed. To them, he was invisible at best, or a target for casual jokes. But they didn't know that decades earlier, Carlos had fallen in love with music. Raised in a tiny apartment filled with the hum of an old upright piano, he taught himself how to play while his mother worked double shifts. He hadn't touched a real piano in years, not since becoming both father and mother to his little girl. The gala was just another night of labor for Carlos, carrying garbage bags, dodging snide remarks. Yet something was different this time. As laughter spilled across the marble hall, one manager pointed at him, smirked, and said for all to hear, "Bet he doesn't even know which end of a piano makes sound." Snickers followed. The CEO, sipping champagne, leaned back with mild amusement as eyes turned on Carlos. In that instant, Carlos had a choice. Melt back into the shadows as he always did. Or quietly reclaim the dignity they had tried to strip away. At first, Carlos shook his head politely. He wasn't looking for attention. But when the manager pressed the joke louder, beckoning him toward the stage, the crowd joined in with claps and coaxing, the air filled with that cruel anticipation, the kind born from treating someone as a spectacle. Carlos felt the sting, not only for himself, but for every time he'd told his daughter, "Always hold your head high, no matter what others say." Wasn't it time to live that lesson? Gathering courage, he stepped forward. The crowd chuckled, exchanging, knowing it looked as if the humiliation was guaranteed. The piano gleamed under the spotlight, polished but untouched all night, awaiting its role as the stage for their mockery. Carlos sat. For a moment, silence hung like a bet. He placed his hands on the keys, simple, worn hands better known for scrubbing floors. The first notes drifted timidly, then grew into a cascade of sound that instantly transformed the atmosphere. Laughter stalled. Conversations cut short. What rang through the ballroom wasn't clumsy or comical. It was beautiful, deliberate, filled with the ache of long-held dreams and the quiet resilience of a man who had never stopped loving music, even when life left him little time to play. The air shifted. Executives who moments before wore smirks now leaned forward with awe, eyes prickled wet. At the head table, the CEO's face, polished into years of unreadable confidence, cracked into something vulnerable. The melody swelled, telling the story Carlos never voiced aloud. The loneliness of single fatherhood, the memory of his mother's sacrifices, the joy and pain of wanting more for his daughter. Each note landed like a confession, like healing poured into the keys. By the final chord, the ballroom was no longer mocking. It was breathless. A heavy silence followed, then applause. Not the polite kind offered at obligation, but thunderous, rising, echoing through the chandeliers. The very people who had been ready to laugh were now standing, and among them the CEO wiped his eyes. For years he had signed papers and delivered speeches, but in a lifetime of carefully measured success, he had rarely been made to feel something this pure so suddenly. Carlos rose quietly from the bench, embarrassed by the attention. To him, it was just music, as natural as breathing. But to everyone else in that glittering hall, it was revelation. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder that dignity is never defined by position. Like this video, subscribe to Kindness Wins, and in the comments tell us, what hidden gift or talent deserves more respect in this world? Your words might inspire someone today. Carlos returned to his janitorial duties the next day, bucket in hand, head slightly bowed. But the whispers of last night carried through the building. Did you hear? That was him on the piano. Even executives who had never learned his name greeted him. Differently now. Somewhere between a nod and something deeper. Respect. Yet the real victory wasn't applause or validation. It was the lesson etched into that grand ballroom. Never mistake a uniform for a measure of worth. Carlos went home that night, kissed his daughter's forehead, and told her that dreams don't die, even if they wait in silence for years. Sometimes opportunity arrives, disguised as ridicule, but it turns into revelation for anyone brave enough to answer.